of something that is called Spare Harvest. So basically, Helen, I was just having a look around the Sunshine Coast for who was doing what with excess produce, because yesterday we had a huge response to our Facebook post that we put up. It was sort of an ongoing conversation. Annie, in the morning program here on ABC Sunshine Coast, had spoken to 8-year-old Isabel, who'd been really inspired by War on Waste in that first episode where they talked about the incredible waste of bananas if they're too big, too small, the wrong size. And we continued that by posting some ugly fruit and produce and asking people that if it was fresh, would they eat it? And they said absolutely. But, you know, speaking to people who sell fruit and veg, yeah, they sort of said, well, the demand's not there. People want their fruit and veg to look a certain way. If you grow your own, of course, that's a whole new story. So, Helen, how did you get involved and what is Spare Harvest?
Spare Harvest is an online community that allows you to connect with your community to share, swap, sell what you've got spare in your kitchens, gardens and farms. And Spare Harvest was started when I moved to the Sunshine Coast and bought a slightly larger property with some established fruit trees on it. And in citrus season come, which is this time of the year, and those lovely trees gave me an abundance that I couldn't actually use. I tried to share it with my network, but they also had trees that were full of produce, and so I ended up finishing the citrus season bearing a whole lot of mandarins into the ground.
Right, so that is kind of good fertiliser for the mandarin tree, but it must be hard to go, oh, I've got all this, I can't eat it. It just would feel a bit weird.
Yeah, it felt awful. Hundreds of mandarins being dug into the ground.
Wow, that many.
Yes, I had 3 mandarin trees producing in abundance that I couldn't give away, share, juice fast enough. And I just thought there had to be a better way rather than dig it into the ground. Compost, yes, it's an important part of it, but these were beautiful, tasty produce that I wanted to get into other people's hands, people I didn't know. And I wanted to find a way that I could do that. And I couldn't find a reliable way. I tried Facebook, but your Facebook feed comes up and then a day later you can't find it when it came up in your Facebook feed and you've lost it, who had it, where are they, you know, all those questions. So I created an online platform and an app that allows you to easily search your local community by category or by location to find what other people are sharing in their kitchens and gardens.
So did you actually start Spare Harvest?
Yes.
I found the right person.
You have.
Wow, because when I looked it was like a picture of the globe and then I narrowed it down and you could see the Spare Harvest people involved all around Australia, narrowed it right down to the Sunshine Coast, and I've lucked on the actual creator.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
There you go.
No one's going to believe me, but if anyone wants to see some of what Helen's growing, we are currently live on Facebook, so facebook.com/AVC Sunshine Coast. How have you managed to, if you'll pardon the pun, grow Spare Harvest from your backyard?
With a little bit of help from volunteers, specifically Nicholas. He's helped us with all the technology. So with my guidance, he's created the platform for me to allow us to actually connect everyone. And then, pardon the pun, we've grown organically. So it's just a matter of me sharing my story with a few people here on the Sunshine Coast, and one person tells another person and then they share it. And the nature of the internet, eventually it's gotten hold of in other locations outside of the Sunshine Coast. And it's growing organically at this stage. And a little bit of PR, thanks to you, that's how it's been growing. So it is like a movement. It's grassroots movement.
I'm feeling like I've just struck gold. Like I just thought I was getting, you know, someone like me who I joined today thinking, you know, I haven't got much, but soon I'm going to have more and more because I'm, you know, planting and just self-generating at the moment with miniature tomatoes, and they are beautiful. So all my colleagues are getting little bundles of miniature tomatoes, and there's going to be, well, there already is more than I can eat, so I will be making sauce.
Yeah.
But I can also share the actual plants because they're cropping up like weeds.
Yes, yes, they shouldn't be classed as weeds, plants.
No.
Any plant that you've got there that you don't need can be shared. So I've got herbs that I have in my garden that I actually leave as a permanent listing. We should be eating fresh herbs, and there's a number of people here on the Sunshine Coast who have got herbs in their gardens. If they could just share that, let people know that they've got fresh herbs. Not only are you harvesting the herbs, which gives you more because they love to be pruned back, but you're creating a community there, you're meeting other people, and that's the lovely thing about Spare Harvest is all we do is connect those two people, and then through their conversation and their connection, they've gotten produce or plants or glass jars or food scraps or coffee grounds, but they've also made a new connection in the community. Shared knowledge, shared wisdom, shared some time, shared their connections, met a new person. It's been really lovely to see.
So you mentioned food scraps, so you can feed your chooks if you've got chooks, that
Yes.
sort of thing, or create some extra compost. I'm going to make a worm farm. I haven't started yet. I'm just looking at the worm farm going, okay, where do I begin? But there's workshops galore on these sort of things. Helen, how does it feel to know that this movement's, on its way to going global?
Oh, it brings joy to my heart, absolute pure joy to my heart, knowing that I'm actually just through my own problem that I had, I created a solution that other people are happy to actually take on board and use it themselves. Is absolutely, words difficult to describe actually.
Whereabouts in Australia, which other locations has Spare Harvest grown into?
Melbourne seems to be picking it up. Victoria has a really big sustainability bent, and so they're starting to pick it up. There's a lady by the name of Caroline who has her kitchen scraps on Spare Harvest. She lives in a unit. She doesn't have chooks, she doesn't have a worm farm, but she has kitchen scraps, and she just seems to think that it's an absolute waste to throw them into the bin.
Well, she's right.
So she's sharing her food scraps with her community, hoping someone who's got a worm farm or a garden or chooks will take them off her hands and use them. There's businesses here who are sharing them. Helen from Hinterland Harvest has a listing there. The primary producers there have leftover leaves on the outside of their cabbages and cauliflowers. They've now listed those so they can share them with someone who has chooks. There are times where sometimes you don't have enough food scraps for your chooks and you go and buy chook food. Don't need to do that. There's plenty of people living in units on the Sunshine Coast who's got food scraps, they've got coffee grounds, they've got glass jars. They've got something to share.
And you connect them with each other so they can then work out how to best get together and do their trades.
Yes, absolutely. We just connect them. It was an integral part of the design. I wanted people to meet each other again. We have a lot of platforms or marketplaces or websites that ship it off and you haven't met the person, you haven't heard their story, you haven't made a connection with them. For me, it was really important that we also connect with the person who is growing the food. So get to know them. Find out how it was grown, what hints and tips, share the solutions that they might have. Because if you're in a local community, if you're having a pest problem, there's a good chance someone else is having the same pest problem. And it makes sense to ask a local how they've solved it rather than get on to Dr. Google and ask someone who lives on the other side of the world.
Is there any costs involved in Spare Harvest?
No, Spare Harvest is free for all individuals, community organisations and not-for-profits.
And anyone anywhere can join, and then it's just a matter of maybe finding other people in your location, or that's what the Spare Harvest site does. You connect people.
Yes.
What happens when, say, someone's in a new town, they're the first person in that town to register? How do we encourage other people to get involved?
That's happening quite a lot at the moment because people are actually going, gee, I love the concept, and then they go and look at the map and realise there's no one in their community. So what we do is we just simply ask them, be the first. Be the first one to create a listing and then just share it with your family and friends, and within a short period of time you'll have another person join and another person join, and straight away you've got a local community. So I'm providing you the solution, but I'm asking you to actually use the platform and share it with your community.
Well, you've got one fan here, that's for sure, and I will be sharing my mini tomatoes if anyone wants miniature tomatoes. They're sweet, they're delicious, and I have the plants in abundance at this stage, and the fruit will be on its way. How many locations has Spare Harvest reached so far?
I've got a few listings in Adelaide, a few in Victoria. There's one lady in California sharing her sapote, so she's doing it on her own, and mostly on the Sunshine Coast in southeast Queensland.
Okay, so everybody listening, spread the word. Let's see if we can eliminate food waste by just sharing. Simple.
It's as simple. There's no excuse for waste anymore. There is someone who will take your waste and see as a treasure. So we get back to that old paradigm. Your trash is someone else's treasure. It is very much the basis of what Spare Harvest was built on. Whatever you don't need anymore, create a listing, try and share it with your community before you put it in the bin.
Helen, it's been great meeting you. I do genuinely mean it when I say I feel like I've struck gold, because I truly thought you were just like me, another person that liked to share produce, but you are the person who actually started all of this.
Thank you. And I do love to share my produce. I love to share my plants, my produce, and my time and Spare Harvest.
Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on ABC Sunshine Coast.
Thank you very much.